Welcome to Your Need to Know. Tonight we're going to be talking with representatives from Decoding Dyslexia, Virginia. This all-volunteer organization that was founded by parents is working to improve the public policy around educational experiences here in Fairfax County and across the state for students who have dyslexia. Joining me is Shannon Duncan and Melinda Mansfield. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Now, Shannon, you and I have done this thing before. You know, going back to, I believe 2015 was the first show that we ever did.
Yes.
And you've come a long way in 5 years. But give our viewers some background on the organization, its history, its mission, and your vision.
Absolutely, that's a mouthful. So we have been around for a while. 2013 was the inception of Decoding Dyslexia Virginia, but we are one of many chapters across the nation and actually internationally that was initiated in New Jersey. And so we are a parent-led grassroots movement, and we're interested in just spreading dyslexia awareness, making sure we get parents to resources faster than we got to them. And then making sure that we educate policymakers, because we know that it's critical. Part of our mission is that it is critical that our children, our students, are identified early in our school systems, that they have access to evidence-based remediation that's delivered with fidelity, that our teachers are trained in this evidence-based remediation, and then at the same time they have access to assistive technology, which really just levels the playing field for them.
You know, one of the things, there was a town hall in 2015 in the summer, in June. I remember it well. And
we were there.
I was there. And we had a panel of students, which I thought was wonderful, because those kids really spoke to the experience of trying to manage the educational system. Some of them in the public school system, some of them in a private school. And we had the Assistant Secretary of Education for the Commonwealth of Virginia there, and he really had some words of wisdom about the fact that you just needed to keep educating legislators, that it's not that people didn't care about this issue, they didn't understand this issue.
Sure. Because who doesn't want the babies to learn to read?
Right.
Right? I mean, no one's promoting struggle for a student who...
Right. But to his point, it's like you have to educate legislators and policymakers and school board members and even the superintendent of Fairfax County Public Schools.
Absolutely.
Because at the time that we did that meeting, there was no dyslexia specialist on the staff at FCPS.
Yes.
And then there was.
And then there was, yes. And there should be in every district. One of the bills that we passed, as you know, we're going to go to Richmond, and we advocate for bills that support our students with dyslexia in public schools, and one of which was a dyslexia advisor. So one of the, I think, 4 bills that we've passed so far, we passed our first bill in 2015 up until last year's 2019, and then we have 4 bills that we're supporting this year. But one of those bills is a dyslexia advisor, and so every county with a reading specialist needed to have a dyslexia advisor. And it's really intricate language that tells you what that dyslexia advisor, what kind of education they have, because the hope is that there's going to be a beacon of light, someone who absolutely knows what students with dyslexia need in order to be successful for their district.
And in combination with that, you also have to have a dyslexia advisor has to be a reading specialist. While there is much research around the country that the reading specialists don't get that kind of training for dyslexia, and in the interventions and the approaches, et cetera. And so another bill that we did, I think it was 2018, was for higher education for reading specialists in order for them to get to know the systematic explicit instruction that is needed for dyslexic children and people who have characteristics of dyslexia.
Right, but what you're really demonstrating is that you are the subject matter experts. Each of you has a child with dyslexia, and you've lived it, right?
Yes.
But to identify the fact that reading specialists are coming out of university without ever having gotten any of this instruction, that's how you solve the problem. Then you go and you say, who do we talk to about making sure every reading specialist has these courses in evidence-based diagnostic testing and remediation and so you guys are really doing the heavy lifting, and I just want our viewers to understand you're just somebody's parent, not just somebody's parent.
That's absolutely, that's what we lead with.
But you know what I mean?
Honestly,
People think that you have to be a lobbyist. No, you do not.
No.
You all are constituents of the people who make these decisions. And so many times I think people feel like the system is so overwhelming that their phone call, their email, showing up to these committee hearings, showing up for these votes doesn't matter.
And it does.
It
Every
does
voice
matter.
matters.
And I mean, you have to do so much research and so much research. And I've even emailed professors to ask them about their research. And that's kind of, you know,
Intimidating for you to
it's
say
totally-
hello.
a parent with.
Right.
But they're the ones who are doing the research, and that research hasn't gotten down to the educational,
The decision
teacher,
makers, right?
The
The
or
decision
teacher
makers.
prep even
The
at
teacher
this
prep,
point.
Yep, and
But
curriculum. And
folks can certainly go to our website because we have easy step-by-step.
Yes.
It's very, depending on how deeply you want to dive into the realm of advocacy, just put your toe in, or you could wade in, or you could just dive right in. If you go to decodingdyslexiavirginia.org, we have some very simple ways that you can reach out to your legislators and to support these bills, and also advocate for change with any of the decision makers in your community.
So like Shannon said, there's so many layers. You could just put an email together for your legislators. You could do public comment at your school board. You can do public comment during the educational committees at the state level. You can do, there's all sorts of different, you can even run something at your library. I mean, there's just a lot that you can do as a parent.
And doing
for advocacy.
And you've got Lobby Day coming up on January 28th.
We
So
do.
we want to let people know that everyone's welcome, right?
Everyone's
So-
welcome.
yes.
It's on our website. It's the only event on our brand new website.
But it's interesting because a lot of people are like, I run into many people who are like, I've never gone into the state capitol
Yes.
in Richmond, or I've been to Richmond, but I've never gone into the chamber. I've never gone into my legislator's office.
So
I
they
wouldn't
have to
know
come,
how,
Catherine.
right?
They have to come.
You do have to come, and it's much easier
yeah.
to do it with a group
It
because
is.
they you'll show people how
Yes.
it's done.
It is, exactly.
And it's a great civics lesson for your children.
Yes, and I do think, Fairfax County just passed that policy amendment that's
It
saying
is.
children can have, students can have 1 day per year
Yeah.
for advocacy. And what a wonderful thing, like, makes you wonder, like, why didn't we do this before?
I
If we
know.
want to have engaged students who advocate on their own behalf.
It's true.
So let's drill down to the 2 bills that you guys are going to be advocating for
Yes.
this session in Richmond.
Well, we have 4 bills, but 2 of them Melinda and I are going to discuss
Okay.
at this stage.
Okay, which one do you want to start with?
Let's start with yours.
Okay, well, we can start with parent notification of scores of screen, or parent notification that you have been screened, that your child has been screened, and then that they are going to be doing some sort of intervention in the general curriculum. Because oftentimes parents don't even know that their kids are just getting a little bit of help. And that's important because you have these problems when you're dyslexic early on. And if you're just getting a little bit of help, the parents don't know until 4th or 5th grade, and then they're asking
It falls
for special
apart.
education.
Because the need for language processing increases as you expect people to be fluid readers, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So first, second, believe me, I lived this too. My son couldn't read going into 3rd grade, and I said in kindergarten, and I kept being put off, and that was the wait to fail model back in the 1990s.
It's still here.
still here.
Still here.
And so I've lived that too. And so
Yes.
I agree. If you're just enabling children to get by with a little bit of assistance, it will fall apart in 4th
It
grade.
will.
And it does, and the research shows that it does.
And parents are a child's first and best advocate.
Advocate.
So a parent should most definitely be notified when their children are screened. And in our dreams, it's going to be reporting what those scores are. The bill at this point doesn't have language like that, but we may be able to modify it so that it does, and that there is any intervention.
Because what we would like to know is, and not just for literacy, that would be our big dream,
Yes.
was just not just for literacy, but literacy and math and behavior. And because that's what they're doing in the schools right now. And if we know those scores and we know those sub-scores, then we are more engaged as a parent. And parent engagement is what is evidence-based for really higher student academic outcomes. And so we need to really focus on having parent engagement in our schools and with our kids.
And I think, too, it's a matter of equity, and equity is something that Fairfax County schools have put front and center. There are some people who have more education, a greater knowledge base about things like dyslexia, and there's a number of children in our schools whose parents are not familiar with this diagnosis, what it
Absolutely.
means, what you do, how it impacts your child. So from an equity lens standpoint, we need to be involving parents and explaining very early what it is.
100%. The
100%.
schools should be expert resources, and they should be engaging with parents.
Right, and if you just tell a parent, oh, we're just giving them a little bit of help, then that can, some parents are like, oh, okay. They're not given the scores and they're not given what the intervention's going to be. Because that's the other thing, you need to know what the plan's going to be.
Because parents need to support the efforts in the classroom at home.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about this is a big one, and that is substituting coding for
Yes.
a foreign language for a diploma requirement.
Yeah, so advanced diploma, because at this stage of the game, Virginia has a tiered diploma strategy, and an advanced diploma is really keeping the fact that 3 years of a foreign language is required in order to earn an advanced diploma. It is keeping a lot of our very bright children with dyslexia from earning this advanced diploma, which is really a shiny penny to all of our universities.
Right.
It's your, as a student who's graduating, you're graduating with a
Standard diploma.
Standard diploma versus this advanced diploma that our children ought to be able to earn. And so the hope is, or the proposed bill is, that coding will be substituted for a foreign language. Because if you're dyslexic and you have been working to process your first language and you have deficits in that area, it is often very difficult for our children to be successful in mastering or even in any way passing the foreign
And that
language
dovetails too with the initiative that the governor has for workforce readiness,
Yes.
giving students skills in high school that is needed in the workplace, whether they go to university or not.
Absolutely, yes. So coding is the skill of the future,
And you mentioned something about the Air Force.
the Air Force, in fact, thank you for reminding me, the Air Force has requested that coding be equal to a foreign language when you get a pay grade increase. So they are looking at it as and this was a 2018 article, they're looking at it as equally important.
So basically, you're just taking something that someone has identified as being a valuable substitution or in addition to, and
Yes.
saying we should bring it into our high schools.
And the focus
and
is
if it's-
strength-based.
And really, if it's good enough for the Air Force.
Yeah, seriously.
Honestly,
It's a fairly credible institution.
It is.
I'm going to say that. So I just want to say, in wrapping up this segment, I appreciate both of you being here
Thank
to
you.
talk to us about Decoding Dyslexia Virginia. I hope people do go to your website, go to the lobby day,
Please.
get involved. Your kids don't have to still be in school.
Nope, absolutely not.
So when we come back from our break, please join us. I've got two other members joining us in the next segment.
There. Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding. Why did the girl ask the mushroom to dance? Because he was a fun guy. What do you call a pig that knows karate? Pork chop. Why was the basketball court all wet? Why? Because the players kept dribbling all over it. Can I tell you another one? So how does a tissue dance? Put a little boogie on it. What's Beethoven's favorite fruit? Banana. What is a boxer's favorite drink? Fruit punch.
Mom, I got it. What are you doing in there?
I got stuck.
Are you a dog?
I wouldn't do that. Have you seen the pliers? Where'd you find those?
It's not your birthday.
Sorry.
Hi, Grandpa.
Bye, Grandpa.
Take care of yourself.
What are you doing? What are you looking for?
Welcome back to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and tonight we're talking with members from Decoding Dyslexia Virginia about their 2020 legislative agenda. Joining me in this segment is Donna Owens, who is a parent member of Decoding Dyslexia Virginia, and Simone Walker, who is the co-chair of the Education Committee for the Arlington NAACP. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So it's kind of like you're in a club you didn't ask to be in.
That's a good way to put it.
You're in a club you didn't ask to be in because you have a child who has dyslexia.
Yes.
And so what you do as a parent, what all parents do, is say, how can we make it, how can I do something to help my child and at the same time help parents so that the new parents of the new kids do not walk the same terrible path, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Pay it forward.
Pay it forward.
Yes.
And so I would encourage our viewers, to understand that you may not have a child with dyslexia, or your child may have long since left the school scene, but advocacy is important. And the
Right.
more people who show up and speak up and say public education should do more
Right.
to help students with dyslexia reach their full potential, which is, again, also an equity issue.
Absolutely. Or you may not know you have a child with dyslexia,
Exactly.
That's it.
which is key.
So
Yes.
one of the bills that is important to both of you is this one about actually testing very young children as they enter the public school system. So talk a little bit about this bill and what it is meant to do and the progress from where we started to where we are and where we hope to be.
Right. Well, we have a problem in Virginia where only 38% of students at the third grade level are reading fluently and proficiently.
Right.
And at the eighth grade level, only 33%. And this is when they're about to start high school. And so this bill would help to identify struggling readers very early as kindergarten, so that they can get the right intervention and instruction in order to get on track. I mean,
And those are shocking numbers.
It is.
What Simone is talking about is the nation's report card that was just released that they administer to fourth and eighth graders every 2 years. And that's something that's really not commonly known, that we have proficiency rates that are that low. I mean, in the 30%, that to me signals that this is not just a dyslexia issue. This is we're failing to teach a lot of kids how to read proficiently.
Right.
So I love the fact that, Simone I just met recently. And so to me, it's the perfect marriage between Decoding Dyslexia Virginia, who is advocating for, people that we know are dyslexic, and really just more about the equity piece in general.
right. Literacy is one of our most important civil rights.
Absolutely.
And the ability to read is the equity issue of our time.
It
And-
absolutely is. Isn't it shocking
Yes.
that they build prisons based on third grade reading scores?
Absolutely, right.
I mean, that is horrific
Right.
Yes.
in
Right.
tying
Right.
our mass incarceration problem with being able to identify in third grade what students are not just going to
Yes.
struggle
Right.
in school, they're going to struggle in life.
Right, that's that school to prison pipeline.
Yes,
That's
it's a
like-
direct link.
Yeah.
I mean, the First Step Act is trying to
Yeah.
ameliorate that. But HB 332, which is our bill, it really addresses the mission of Decoding Dyslexia Virginia and also of the NAACP, which strives for educational equity.
Right, and you're talking about evidence-based research. I mean, let's
Yes.
do bring this back to science and not just wishful
Exactly.
thinking,
That's
like
right.
everybody should read better. But there are tests, and there are experts. In the previous segment, Melinda was talking about how she reached out to professors who were doing research.
Exactly.
There are evidence-based, very efficacious pedagogies
Yes.
that say we know this works.
Right.
That's right.
And Virginia was one of the first states that started literacy screening. So yay, Virginia! In 1997, we started with the Phonological Awareness Literacy Screener, and that's something that we're still using today to screen K through third graders. But we now know from 3 decades of research that there are really 2 key skills that are a necessary skill that we need to know if kids have. And one is that phonological awareness piece, which we've got covered with the PALS. But the second piece that we need to know is called a rapid automatized naming. It's called RAN. And House Bill 332, sponsored by Delegate Patrick Hope, is really about putting that second piece into the screening process to really be able to screen for a child's rapid automatized naming, or people call it RAN. Would it be too in the weeds to tell you a little bit about like what those two skills are? You know?
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. So phonemic awareness is, as I said, we've been screening for that since 1997. Is really just about hearing the sounds that are in words and being able to know that like mother and money both have the same initial sound. It's about recognizing two words that rhyme. It's about being able to take sounds and push them together. So it's not really about recognizing letters, but it's about what you're hearing. You know, are you hearing all of those sounds that a word makes up? How many syllables are in it? Which again, very key to like understanding how to read. Rapid naming, on the other hand, is being able to like look at objects, numbers, colors, letters, and be able to automatically say what that is. And that should be happening without too much thought. Like if I look at that table and say, you know, table, if I can say that immediately, then, you know, chances are eventually, if I'm taught the right way, I'm going to be a proficient reader. But if I hesitate, and that's why it's so important to have these rapid naming tests,
Right.
is because we know on a normed scale, out of, you know, X thousands of kids, if you are not recognizing and being able to say that so quickly, that you're going to probably have problems with reading.
Right, it's the biggest indicator.
So it's cognitive
reason.
processing.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. It's all of that like processing speed and working memory. That's all. And thankfully, we have a test. You know, there are tests out there in the marketplace.
So what is the objection? So you would think, because people watching the show are going to go, well, it sounds like you got the solution. It sounds like you know how to do it.
It should be simple,
so,
right?
Right. So like, why aren't we already doing it?
Right.
Why aren't we already doing it?
Well, we tried. Right? We tried for 2 years to have this
Exactly.
introduced into legislation. And I know last year it got watered down or amended down to a study.
Right. Yeah, I know how that
Yeah.
goes.
Yes.
Well, they didn't
Exactly.
they didn't just lay it aside and kill it completely.
Exactly. Right.
But they were going to order a study.
Right,
Exactly.
they killed it in 2018, right?
Right,
Yeah.
yes. So 2018 was the first time Decoding Dyslexia had brought this up. And because we are so focused on making sure that we don't have unnecessary screeners and things that take up a lot of time, because our teachers really, I mean, we're asking a lot of our
Right.
teachers.
Right.
I think that everyone kind of shook their head and thought, we can't introduce a new screener into those, you know, K through first grade classrooms.
But the RAN takes less than 10 minutes per child.
Right.
It's a pretty quick test.
But you get such a big bang
From knowing that
from knowing that
for
information.
every
It's
child.
so valuable.
Exactly.
Every child.
Yes.
Yes, because that's really the definition of, some people don't understand exactly what a screener is, but a screener is a very quick test. It's usually testing like one specific skill, and it is done on every kid in the classroom. So it's not like the teacher is deciding, oh, I think this child might have a problem. So it's universally screening all of those.
You know, when we
25
give
kids.
them a vision test, right?
Yes.
Like you line them
Right.
up and you're
Exactly.
like this
Right.
way. Like I've
Absolutely.
actually done that for little bitty kids.
Yeah.
So we're like, show me this or this.
Right.
So we know that if children
Yes.
can't see, they can't learn.
Exactly.
That's
So it seems to me this is just another universal test, not unlike
Exactly.
the vision test, where you line them up and you say, okay, it's going to take us 10 minutes to take you through this test.
That's right. Exactly.
So it has to come down, as it always does, to fiscal impact, because whenever you ask for something, there's always a cost attached.
Yes.
And is that the big thing, is getting it out of the appropriations committee because of the price tag?
Right. Well, I tell you what costs more. Literacy.
Yes.
Literacy is
Exactly.
expensive.
You're absolutely right.
Yes.
It costs the state more. And what happens is, if you don't catch a student with dyslexia early and give that intervention early, it requires so much more on the district, on the parents.
To fix it.
As far as
Yes.
remediation.
Yep, so
on the-
true.
Yes.
It's penny wise and pound foolish.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
And that's why I'm saying that our viewers really need to understand that we all need to care about the quality of our public schools. And not just in Fairfax County, but you know, the thing about these bills in Richmond is it's for every student in Virginia.
Yes.
It's not
It is.
just for Fairfax County, which is rich in resources and a lot of
Right.
a lot of
This is
things.
for the
but
entire state.
there's 95 counties in Virginia,
That's
and there's
right.
dyslexic students in all of them.
Right.
Yes.
So what you're doing is actually saying, no matter where a child lives or what their zip code is, they deserve to be.
That's
they
right.
deserve to be screened,
Right.
Yes.
and there needs to be something in the school system to remediate once you've identified who those students are.
That's right.
And that is a big part of, thankfully in the study, I feel like we're on the same page because
Yes.
the Virginia Department of Education basically agreed that yes, rapid naming is an important skill to test. And not only did they go there, but they also said if you're identified with a rapid naming deficit, then you need structured literacy
That's right.
instruction. So this bill that Delegate Hope is bringing forth, H. Bill 332, is tying those both in. So
Right.
we're actually in agreement with the Virginia Department
the
of
approach,
Education,
absolutely.
in the approach and what needs to happen. Because as we've all talked about before, I think that the public schools, if we're not identifying these kids early, we're creating a disability. We're taking
That's right.
a difference in this child that probably was unseen before they really started kindergarten, and we're creating a disability out of that child if we're not educating them the way that they need to learn how to read.
Right. These kids would not necessarily need special ed if they were identified and got the right
Support
early while their brains are malleable
Right.
and can absorb the right way to learn how to read.
Well, I have to say, I'm very proud of Adolph Carney, who is our Secretary of Education, who is a classroom teacher. And it does make, they talk about proximity to the problem.
Yes.
And when you have someone leading the Department of Education who's actually taught in the classroom, I think it makes a difference.
Well, he should know then. He
He
should
does,
know
he
that.
does, and that's
You
what-
know,
and that's
he
why I
does.
say it's helpful to have him in that position, I think. Just before we go off the air, I want to remind people again that the lobby day is January the 28th.
In Richmond.
Everybody can get on the bus, the bus and come on down.
Exactly.
Dyslexic Edge Conference is going to be at George Mason University, the second annual. That is on Saturday, March the 21st. Again, people are welcome. Come and sit in,
Yes.
bring your kids,
Yes.
find out more, figure out what the resources are. There's going to be a wonderful keynote speaker there.
And kids are great to advocate. I've taken all of my kids both to the Capitol here in D.C. When we've been working on federal legislation, as well as in Richmond to talk to their representatives. And when it comes from a child's voice, when they tell you how much they're struggling in
Yes.
school, or how much they wanted to disappear in the classroom, or how they felt so unsuccessful, that's impactful.
That is
it
what
really
that
is.
is what strikes the chord. Thank you, ladies,
Yes.
both so much. Donna,
you.
Simone,
Thank
and this
you.
at home is what you need to know.